Coming into number 10, we have the Stanley Hotel. So the Stanley Hotel was the place that inspired Stephen King to write one of the most horrifying novels turned horrifying films of all time. The resort is in Colorado and built into the Rocky Mountains. The building has a rich history of paranormal goings-on across the entire hotel, but in particular the 4th floor. The most haunted room is supposed to be room 217. This is the room where King stayed the night and was also said to have once been the site of an unfortunate explosion. This is what Stephen King said about the stay that inspired what is arguably his most famous novel. He said, "I dreamt of my 3-year-old son running through the corridors, looking back over his shoulder, eyes wide, screaming. He was being chased by a fire hose. I woke up with a tremendous jerk, sweating all over, within an inch of falling out of bed. I got up, I lit a cigarette, I sat in the chair looking out of the window at the Rockies, and by the time the cigarette was done, I had the bones of my book firmly set in my mind." Stephen King for King, I love him. Also, I will say, staff who frequent the concert hall at the hotel at night report hearing the whispered words, "Get out," which would deeply freak me out. Coming into number 9, we have the Taj Mahal Palace. Located in India, although not actually in the famous Taj Mahal, this hotel has a woeful backstory. Despite the Mumbai hotel being grand and beautiful, it is said that the French architect W.A. Chambers accidentally built it backwards and was so distraught that he ended up committing suicide by jumping from the 5th floor. Now, according to a lot of first-hand reports from staff at the lavish hotel, the architect still roams the halls at night. The hotel was also the site of a terror attack in 2008. At this point, the hotel was seized and 31 people were killed there. The hotel was back up and running soon after as a symbol of strength and resilience, but the memory of the attacks live on. Coming into number 8, we have the Drovers Inn. Ah, Scotland. I dream of you always. I would stay anywhere in Scotland, even here. The Drovers Inn is located in Invernanan in Loch Lomond. The Drovers Inn dates back to the 1700s, a time when things were really kicking off in Scotland. The inn is the best kind of hotel because it's also a pub with just a small number of rooms, so you can get nice and cozy with those ghosts, of which there are many. Room 6 is said to be plagued by mysterious orb lights. A ghostly child appears in a pink dress on the staircase, and room 115 is haunted by a voyeur. It seems that a couple stayed in the room one night and were awoken by strange flashes. Thinking nothing of it, they went back to sleep. The next morning, when they were packing up, they found their camera out of place. Weird. They didn't think too much of it until later when they went through the pictures and there were some creepy images of the couple sleeping. The pair were freaked out as the room was locked from the inside when they went to bed, but nonetheless they called the inn to report the goings on. Now the inn responded and said that no staff would have had access to the room, and even if they had, they couldn't enter if it was locked from the inside. Creepy, although I'd still stay there just to be in Scotland. I love Scotland. Coming into number 7, we have Hotel Galvez. I have always wanted to go to Texas. I've never been, but I'm super keen, although honestly I'm keen to go everywhere and anywhere. But still, Texas is high up. Anyway, Hotel Galvez is located in Galveston Island on the Gulf of Mexico and was built in 1911. Over 100 years later, and the Queen of the Gulf is drawing in visitors, although it seems that some guests have never left. Rather than giving you a whole spiel like I usually would, I'm just gonna read you a TripAdvisor review from a spooked guest. Here goes. The hotel is so full of history and the interior is very beautiful. I didn't realize that the Galvez was known for its ghostly visitors, nor was I a believer, until now. My friend and I were walking the Galvez and my friend was calling out to Audra, a woman who hung herself in the hotel in the 1950s. Her room was 501 and we were staying a few rooms down. Anyway, we go to sleep that night and at around 5 AM I woke up and my hotel door is open and the latch is still on and I'm thinking, oh my god. We were intoxicated, so I guess we just left the door open. So I close the door and I go back to bed and I wake up at around 8 AM and I tell my friend that we left the door open last night. Then I get out of bed and walk over to the door to show her how far it was, and to my amazement, the door kept closing all the way. It just wouldn't stay open. It's spring-loaded, so I was confused. Anyway, that's my story of the Galvez. Blimey, this is what happens when you call upon spirits, I'm just saying. Coming into number 6, we have Murder Castle. What do you mean you don't want to stay at Murder Castle? Sounds lovely. So actually you can't thankfully stay here anymore. It's been torn down. H.H. Holmes's murder mansion has been demolished, but the site is now the Englewood Post Office. So I read The Devil in White City earlier this year before a trip to Chicago, and honestly it was really terrifying. H.H. Holmes was a real man who built a hotel in Englewood, Chicago in order to kill people. He booby-trapped the place so that guests couldn't escape their rooms, and he would often knock them unconscious using hidden gas valves. Many of the hotel's rooms were outfitted with chutes that would drop bodies into the basement, where Holmes would then dissolve them in acid to rid himself of the evidence. The infamous serial killer confessed to killing 27 people at the property, which housed tourists visiting the Chicago World Fair. It is actually anticipated that he killed a lot more than that. As many as 200 people were thought to have lost their lives in the building. Coming into number 5, we have the Russell Hotel. If you hear a creak in the night at the Russell Hotel in Sydney, chances are there's a ghoul on the loose or lurking in the shadows. The Russell Hotel is no stranger to mysterious midnight moans and groans, but the most enduring legend is of a spirit of a sailor who roams the hotel, but most often causes trouble in room 8. Guests have seen him lurking over their bed, staring at them in the night. That's a no from me, sir. Back on your ship. Okay, but despite the ghosts and everything, you should actually stay here because it's one of the nicest and most beautiful places I've ever been in the world. Coming into number 4, we have Fairmont Banff Springs. I went to the Fairmont Banff Springs earlier this year and it was absolutely breathtaking. The building dates back to 1888 and was a Grand Railway Hotel. The building is a National Historic Site of Canada, but it is teeming with ghosts and ghouls. It is said that a secret room was constructed during the original build, which was only discovered when a fire broke out in 1926. Speaking of fire, some say a burning bride haunts the sweeping ballroom. The story goes that as she walked down a staircase lined with candles, her dress caught fire. In a panic, she tripped and fell, dying from a broken neck. Some say that her spirit haunts both the bridal suite and the ballroom, where she can be seen dancing with flames licking her dress. Also reported it's the spectre of a bellman who haunts the 9th floor, and an apparition of a bartender, and, get this, a headless bagpipe player. How that works? I mean, you go figure. The real deal here though is room 837. Legend has it that this is the room that a grisly murder took place in, and that guests who stay here are awoken in the middle of the night by screaming. Bloody handprints have also been spotted on the room's mirror. On the upside though, I will once again reiterate that this is one of the nicest hotels in the world and it's absolutely stunning, and there's a beautiful lobby dog called Bear. Coming into number 3, we have the Langham. The Langham is a beautiful and very fancy hotel in London. Shout out to my former hometown. The luxury 5-star rooms come with a hefty price tag and some extra ghouls. The hotel opened in 1865 and was said to have been the suicide spot of a German prince who jumped from the 4th floor. He can still be seen at the window he once fell from. A doctor involved in a murder-suicide can also be found pacing the halls, and none other than Emperor Napoleon III still haunts the basement. Room 333 is said to be the most haunted of them all, with many a spectre wanting a sleepover. The most famous ghost, inclusive to room 333, is a man in Victorian dress who likes to watch people sleeping. Whether or not it's he who shakes the bed violently at night, we don't know. Damn, I forgot to tell you about the ghost with the gaping wound on its face. Next time. Coming into number 2, we have the Stay on Main. There are 16 very good reasons not to stay at this cursed hotel in Los Angeles. Oh, and also don't let the new name fool you. This is the legendary cursed Cecil Hotel, most recently in the news because of the disappearance of Alyssa Lamb in 2013. The Canadian tourist was found dead in the hotel's water tank, surrounded by her belongings, after going missing for 3 weeks. CCTV footage was released of her acting very strangely in an elevator before her mysterious and to this day unsolved death. It literally looks like she's pleading with someone invisible, which freaks me out. Before her death, the hotel was already wrapped up in 16 other grisly untimely deaths. It's actually thought that the Black Dahlia, a murdered rising Hollywood star, stayed at the hotel before her death. Oh, and it was also said to be the home of serial killers Richard Ramirez and Jack Unterweger. I feel like it just needs to be knocked down and the grounds cleansed with holy water or something. Finally, coming into number 1, you've all heard of Egyptian curses, but But we're a little far from Egypt here. We've got the Luxor Hotel. Las Vegas is a place for tortured souls, so it's kind of understandable that so many hotels on the Strip are reported to be haunted. I could legitimately make a whole top 10 list about hotels not to stay at in Vegas, but for this list I'm just keeping it to the one. Luxor Hotel is an Egyptian themed hotel, but it may have angered the old gods. Many people think that it's cursed. Why? Well, attention to detail was actually lacking when the hotel was built. The Sphinx in the hotel is facing east rather than west, and the building of the pyramid doesn't have the required eye on the top, which is just utter disrespect, right? The Luxor has had very consistently high death rates over the years since it opened in 1993, and a string of misfortune that's also surrounded it. Some people say that 7 people died whilst building the hotel. In 1996, a woman jumped from the 26th floor of the building and now haunts the lobby. Another man died while he drunkenly fell from the 10th floor. A hand bomb went off in the parking garage in 2007, killing an employee. In 2010, a UNLV football player dropped dead following a fight, and in 2012, a casino employee was murdered by her boyfriend, once again in the lobby. 2012 was also a bad year for the hotel's rep, as 3 guests caught Legionnaire's disease, with a further case reported in 2017. One of the guests even died as a result. Guests have spotted ghost riders in the boats along the replica River Nile. And in case that wasn't enough, it is thought that the Titanic exhibition at the hotel also invited ghosts from the cruise ship disaster too. Whew, I don't know how many I counted there, but that is a lot. And I think ultimately the lesson to be learnt here is don't face your Sphinx the wrong way, because, I don't know, the gods will come for you. Probably.
Starting off at number 10 is the Stone Line Inn in Oklahoma. This inn was originally built as a Victorian mansion in 1907 for F.E. Houghton, but it was also used as a funeral home for an 8-year period when the Houghton family struggled financially. The embalming table from that time is still on display at what is now a bed and breakfast. Possibly as a result of the death that was within it previously, guests have reported strange noises throughout the house. Guests also say they have seen the daughter Augusta, who died in the house from whooping cough, and F.E. Houghton himself smoking a pipe. But we got more ghosts coming for you at number 9, Hotel Europe in Vancouver. Now this building was completed in 1909 to be the prominent hotel in town, and it was, up until Hotel Vancouver opened up in 1916. After it lost the majority of the favorable clientele, the hotel fell into disrepute and into a brothel. It eventually became a heritage building with a storefront on the main level though. So over this time, the areaways underground were filled up. These were paths underground that connected to the sidewalk so that freight could be loaded into the cellars in the basement. During the construction, one of the times the Hotel Europe changed, a contractor had a frightening experience. Apparently, he was working by himself on some repairs in the cellar, close up to a bricked up areaway door. The contractor left the cellar briefly just to fetch something, and when he returned, his tools were just scattered all around the floor. He then heard scratching noises coming from behind the brick wall and felt a bad presence. Scared and confused, he quickly gathered up his tools and left the cellar as fast as he could. After that, he flat out refused to work there again. Sometimes scratching noises can be heard coming from the other side of the bricked up areaway, and some people dispute, yeah, it could be mice. But you have to remember, the areaways were completely filled in, bricks and concrete. Later on, after all this, the owner of a poster store on the main floor of the building saw a figure in a black coat and flat cap in her store after closing the store on security camera. When she went to check on the possible lost customer, when she swore no one was there when she closed it, he was gone. She was rightly so shaken and closed up the store quickly that night, not sure if she was seeing things. But let's move on to number 8, the Crescent Hotel, the hotel in Eureka Springs, Arkansas. So this used to be one of the most luxurious resorts when it opened in 1886. But tough economic times hurt the Crescent Hotel and it closed in the 1930s. In 1937, Norman Baker opened its doors once again and turned it into Baker's Cancer Curing Hospital, as a man without a medical degree. It was discovered that this fraud physician was indeed running a scam. Today, the hospital has returned to its former luxurious glory, but some spirits from the past still lurk around. Some spirits included are some of Baker's old patients, including a commonly spotted Theodora. She is most often spotted fumbling her keys outside room 419. Another spirit seen around the property is a man who helped build it, Michael, an Irish stonemason who fell to his death. If you happen to stay there, they have nightly ghost tours that end at the morgue, a morgue that still remains intact from its time as a hospital, and it is said to be a hotbed of paranormal activity. At number 7, Banff Springs Hotel, Alberta. So the Fairmont Banff Springs was actually one of the first railway hotels built in the 19th century by the Canadian Pacific Railway. It was built as a part of the aim to attract travelers westward. So the hotel denies that it is haunted, but that doesn't stop the guests who stay there from sharing the encounters that they have had. The long-standing story is that in 1932 there was a bride who died while falling down one of the hotel's grand stone staircases. Guests say they've seen her still in her wedding dress dancing alone in the Cascade Ballroom. Another hotel the Canadian Pacific Railway built is our number 6, the Royal York Hotel. So this one was opened in 1929 right across from the Union Station in Toronto. At the time, and to this day, it's one of Toronto's most grand hotels, like even the Queen has stayed there. But just like the Banff Springs Hotel, it is home to its fair share of ghost stories. People talk about hearing the sounds of children running up and down the halls, but once they check to see who is making all that noise, the hallway falls silent. It's not just some tricksters running around. Also, people underneath the now closed off Crystal Ballroom report hearing voices and music coming from the vacant space. One guest even wrote on a Toronto blog that some chandeliers on the floor below it were trembling and the ceiling shook. So maybe some fancy ghosts took up residence after the ballroom was closed off permanently due to building and fire code violations. You know, our loss is some fancy ghost gain. At number 5, the Story Inn. This inn was built in 1851 in Indiana, and it truly does house quite the story. It is the only structure still left in a mining town called Story that was left inoperative after the Great Depression. It was restored and revitalized in the 1960s as a bed and breakfast, and it does have a frequent spectral guest, the Blue Lady. In the inn's guest books, there were records of a ghost called the Blue Lady who is believed to be the wife of the town's original founder, Dr. George Story. The guests of the inn record that her eyes are a hypnotic blue and she smells like cherry tobacco. To summon her, those who stay turn on the blue light beside the bed in what used to be her own room. Today, it's called the Blue Lady Room. So if she's feeling particularly nice, she will even leave behind blue items in that room if you are there to stay. At number 4, we have Mount Washington Hotel. Back in 1902, a businessman named Joseph Stickney built the hotel in Bretton Woods, New Hampshire. The following year after completion, unfortunately, he passed away. It is believed that his widowed wife Carolyn now haunts the halls of the hotel, reliving the moments they had together. Hotel staff have reportedly spotted her descending the stairs for dinner and have also noticed lights inexplicably turning on and off in one of the towers. Sometimes she has been spotted standing on the balcony looking off into the distance, lost in thought. Her 4-poster maple bed is still in room 314 and has become well known as the best place to see her. Guests have reported waking up to find a woman sitting at the end of their bed, slowly brushing her hair. I wonder if she's staring at them or off in the distance, because one of them is much creepier than the other. At number 3, La Fonda on the Plaza Santa Fe. While the structure of La Fonda was built in 1922, records say it's on the site of the city's first hotel dating all the way back to the early 17th century. So the New Mexico Hotel was a favored place for travelers headed west, and is home to a couple of guests that have passed on and refused to leave. The first ghost is the former Chief Justice of the Territorial Supreme Court, John P. Slough. He was shot to death in the hotel lobby and his spirit is said to have never left. The second specter scene is a distraught salesman. The man apparently jumped into the hotel well after gambling and losing on a bad hand. He has been seen emerging from the hotel fountain. Which I have to say, if you're gambling and you lose a bad hand, 1, don't gamble, maybe, and 2, only have good hands, that's what I do. Number 2, the Prince of Wales Hotel, Niagara-on-the-Lake, Ontario, Canada. This hotel was built in 1864 and went through a few other names before becoming the Prince of Wales Hotel in 1901. It was expanded in the 70s to add additional wings on either side, but the new additions blend in, so the original architecture looks the same. Also, tourists can't really notice. So even with all the changes to the hotel, the resident ghost has not been deterred. She already spent so much time there. 200 years. So Molly Maguire was in a wooden house where the hotel is today when Americans laid siege on the town. An American soldier was tasked with searching the house and found a dark figure looking out the window. Thinking it was a British soldier, he ran the figure through with his bayonet. But it was Molly. The soldier ran off, telling no one of his mistake of killing an innocent woman. Today, the spirit of Molly is said to haunt room 207, the approximate location of Molly's bedroom. People report waking up to footsteps echoing in their dark and empty room and random lights being on when they swear they turn them off. One guest even checked out because all the haunted happenings were just too much for them. Number 1, the Red Lion Inn in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. So, all the way back in 1773, a small tavern was established on the corner that would eventually house the Red Lion Inn. In 1896, while it was known as the Stockbridge House, the entire property burned down in a fire. It was rebuilt and opened the next year, then continued to change ownership and names throughout the years. With all of that history, the inn is said to have quite a bit of spiritual activity. Guests often see figures, including a young girl carrying flowers or a man in a top hat on the premises. But room 301 is the room to go if you really want a creepy encounter. One man recorded his experience on TripAdvisor. In the middle of the night on 3 different occasions, I woke up feeling my toes being tugged on and someone scratching my hand. I also felt as if someone or something was under the covers with me at one point. Then at 9 AM in the morning, I woke up when I heard the maid knocking at the door. She opened the room with the key, walked in, and headed for the bathroom. I heard the footsteps come out of the bathroom and stop by the bed. Then it suddenly felt as though someone was fluffing up the comforter as if trying to make up the bed on the left-hand side. As hard as I tried, I could not move and I could not speak. When I looked up, I realized that I was in the room alone and no one had been there. If I was that guy, I would check out of that place immediately, but he was there for a business conference and had to deal with it.
Starting off this countdown, we have room 333. The Langham Hotel is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in London, as it is haunted by more than 5 ghosts. The most active ghost is said to be that of a German prince. It's believed that he threw himself out of a window on an upper story room and passed away. Guests have seen his ghost on a number of occasions. He is known to move through walls and close doors. If you feel a sudden drop in temperature, it's said that's a sign that he is near. You also have the ghost of a man with a gaping wound on his face. But the most haunted area in the whole hotel is room 333. People who have stayed in this room have encountered a number of terrifying ghosts. The first sighting was made by a BBC newscaster. He was staying in the room when he woke up to see a fluorescent ball of light floating above him, which slowly transformed into a human figure. The apparition hovered in his room, and he was dressed in Victorian evening wear, but one of his legs was missing. He came towards the newscaster with his arms open and eyes wide, before disappearing into thin air. Another ghost that haunts this room is the ghost of a doctor who took the life of his wife on their honeymoon. This guy often appears wearing a cloak and often has blank staring eyes. And lastly, we have Emperor Napoleon III. Apparently he lived at the Langham during his last days in exile. And he's also made an appearance in room 333. In our 9th spot, we have the Hay Adams. Located in Washington, D.C., this hotel is said to be the most famous hotel in the capital. That's because a number of big hotshots have stayed there, like Obama. But the hotel has a pretty haunting past. In 1884, John Hay, who was President Abraham Lincoln's private secretary, and Henry Adams built their homes on the plot of land where the hotel was built upon. In 1885, Adams' wife, Marion Hooper Adams, ended up taking her life there. She had been battling a case of serious depression, triggered by the death of her father 10 months earlier. In 1927, after Adams passed away, the houses were destroyed and replaced with the hotel. But it didn't matter, because Marion's soul is attached to the land that she died on, so she now haunts the hotel. Guests and staff members have frequently reported hearing the sounds of someone crying. They believe that it is Marion weeping over her heartbreak and loss of father. In our 8th spot, we have the Ballygolly Castle, and I just absolutely love the name of this place, so I had to put it on today's list. Like Ballygolly, Ballygally, I don't care, it's funny. Anyways, this was a castle built in 1625 Ireland. Now it has been transformed into a hotel. Turns out that years ago, the original owners, Lord James Shaw and his wife, Lady Isabella, lived in the castle. That was until Isabella's death. She either fell, jumped, or was pushed to her death from the top of the castle. To this day, her ghost still haunts her old home. She has been seen wandering around the castle, knocking on doors, and on multiple occasions can be heard weeping from her tower. Moving on to number 7, we have room 873. Located in the luxury mountain resort Banff Springs Hotel, room 873 is so haunted that they had to permanently seal it up, hoping that it would seal away the evil with it. According to a number of legends, decades ago a family was killed in room 873. In 1928, a married couple and their daughter checked into the hotel, but they never checked out. During one night, the father ended up taking the lives of his wife and daughter before taking his own life. No one knows why he did this. Soon after, the room was refurbished and booked out to visitors. But weird things started happening in that room. Guests would wake up in the middle of the night to sounds of screaming in their room. When they would flip on the lights, they would see bloody handprints on the mirror inside the room. Obviously, they would freak the hell out and run to the front desk, but when the staff went to the room to investigate the prints, they would be gone. It was happening so frequently that they decided to board up the room. In fact, if you go to the hotel today, there are rooms ending in 7-3 on each floor, except on the 8th floor. In the spot where it should be, you can tell that a room has been boarded up. In our 6th spot today, we have Lizzie Borden House. Turns out that the infamous Lizzie Borden House, where she allegedly killed her parents, is now a fun little bed and breakfast. But a haunted fun little bed and breakfast. So story goes that back in 1892, both of Lizzie's parents were found dead. After investigating the scene, Lizzie was the only person who seemed guilty, so she was blamed for their murder. While staying there, guests have reported seeing doors open and close on their own. Also, late at night, apparently Lizzie can be heard laughing at the top of the stairs. We are now at our 5th and halfway mark with the Omni Grove Park Inn. Back in the 1920s, while staying at the Omni Grove Park Inn in North Carolina, a young woman was either pushed or jumped to her death from her hotel room 545. To this day, her presence still wanders the walls of the hotel. Some guests have felt her presence, others have seen a strange pink mist form around them, and some have actually seen this ghostly woman herself. She appears in a flowy pink gown, hence why people just call her the Pink Lady. The people most sensitive to seeing her are young children. A number of children have seen her and been like, "Mommy, who's that lady in the pink dress?" Meanwhile, no one's there. How freaky. Coming in at number 4, we have the Ostasaga Resort. Located in New York, this resort has quite the fair share of history. When it was first erected, it was actually a school for girls, and to this day, these little girlies still haunt the area. Apparently, while on the 3rd floor hallway, you'll be able to hear a bunch of them giggling and whispering. In fact, Sci-Fi's Ghost Hunters went to investigate this place a couple years ago, and when doing so, they captured the presence of a bunch of shadowy figures, ghostly whisperings, and other paranormal activity. If you want to check out the place today, go to the 2nd, 3rd, and 5th floors. That's where all the spooky stuff is said to happen. In our 3rd spot today, we have La Posada de Santa Fe. This resort and spa hotel is anything but relaxing. Turns out that it is haunted by a German woman named Julia Stab. Oh my god, her last name is Stab. It's probably like Stob. It definitely is because it's German, but anyway, it makes it spookier. Before it was a resort, it was her mansion. It was built by her husband in 1882. A couple years later, Julia fell into a really bad depression. Her 8th child ended up passing away shortly after birth, and so Julia locked herself in her room. She didn't leave her room until 1896. When she passed away, her soul latched onto the house. To this day, she still wanders around the halls. Most frequently, she will appear in Suite 100. It's now a guest suite, but it used to be her bedroom. In fact, Julia loved to take baths, so people staying in the suite often hear the water running in the middle of the night. Moving on to number 2, we have the Fairmount Royal York Hotel. Turns out that there's a haunted hotel in my hometown and I didn't even know it. Toronto's Royal York Hotel is nearly 100 years old. Construction of it finished in 1929, and over the years a number of members of royalty, celebrities, and millionaires and ghosts have stayed at this hotel. Seems to be a nice luxury hotel, minus the fact that it's completely haunted. One famous ghost is the man dressed in a purple coat that wanders around the 8th floor. There's also ghosts of children haunting the halls. One guest told the concierge that they heard children running up and down the halls on the first night that they checked in, but they saw no children. When they looked through the peephole the next night, they saw a gray-haired man with a purple waistcoat. They initially thought that it was a hotel staff member, but when they opened the door, the man disappeared into thin air. The hotel also has a crystal ballroom that is also haunted. Guests frequently hear noises and music within the ballroom, even after it's been closed. And in our number 1 spot today, we have room B340. Queen Mary Hotel is said to be one of the most haunted hotels in America. There are a number of ghosts that haunt this hotel, from Jackie, the little girl who haunts the first-class pool, to a man named John Petter who was crushed by a watertight door, to 2nd Senior Officer William Eric Stark, who accidentally drank cleaning fluid instead of gin, and one of the cooks who was baked alive by his own staff during World War II. So yeah, a lot of dark things have happened on this ship turned hotel. Now, there is one room that you never ever want to visit, and that's room B340. It's the site of a huge tragedy. So back in the 60s, the ship was used for transatlantic cruises. Well, while on this cruise, a man went crazy and took the lives of 2 women in this room. When his crimes were discovered, he was locked in the room until they could dock the ship and deal with him. The door was locked from the outside and a guard was positioned outside the room so the killer couldn't escape. At one point, the guard heard the man pounding on the door saying that someone was in the room with him and was trying to kill him. Obviously, the guard was like, I ain't no idiot, I'm not falling for that, so he never opened the door. He thought this guy was just trying to get him to open the door so he could escape. Here's where it gets weird. Shortly after, the guard heard nothing coming from the room, so he thought that the man finally settled down and went to bed. The next day, the ship arrived in New York and the NYPD boarded the ship to arrest this man. But when he opened the door, they found the man's body parts scattered across the room. His limbs had been ripped off and were all over the place. There's no way that he could have done this to himself. So what happened in there? Was there actually someone in that room with him? If so, how did they get in and then out? A number of guests who have stayed in that room have reported eerie things happening to them in the middle of the night, like flickering lights, knocking, apparitions, and the water turning on and off by itself.
Starting us off at number 10 is Elms Hotel and Spa. Located in Missouri, some believe this hotel might just be the most haunted in the entire state. Originally built in 1888, just 10 years after its construction, the Elms Hotel was destroyed by a fire. It was a tragic event, but luckily no one lost their lives. But what's mysterious is that in 1910, the hotel went up in flames once more. Again, no one lost their lives, but this time, passersby noticed something. It appeared as though a spirit was walking around the embers, and rumors began circulating that somehow the mysterious entity had lit the flames. But just who exactly is this spooky arson demon, and why did they burn down the hotel? More importantly, if it was them, what made them stop? And it's not just fire maniac ghosts that haunt these halls. Another commonly seen apparition is that of a grieving woman who wanders the halls looking for her little one. But make no mistake, though she may be grieving, she is an angry entity. She'll pull at their hair or throw objects across the room while they are asleep to try and get your attention. Maybe she believes the guests are who took her little one from her, or maybe she is just angry to have visitors there. But either way, if I were you, I would not stay the night if you're looking for a peaceful sleep. Coming in at number 9, the Biltmore Hotel. Back in 1929, New York gangster Thomas "Fatty" Walsh was staying in the Everglades suite on the 13th floor of the Biltmore Hotel in Florida. Apparently, Fatty routinely stayed here and used the suite as a speakeasy and casino for him and his friends. However, after a heated argument over gambling debts, Fatty was shot by fellow mobster Edward Wilson and died right on the scene, and it appears he has never left. Once a player, still a player, the New York gangster is notorious for appearing only to women who he deems attractive and tricks them into visiting him on the 13th floor. One woman recounted her stay with her husband and said while in the elevator, all of a sudden the doors opened on the 13th floor, despite that neither of them had requested that floor. They waited a moment and the doors wouldn't close, so the woman stepped out to see what was going on. As soon as she did, the doors slammed behind her on the elevator and it continued its journey to the lobby. The husband, worried for his wife, tried to reach the 13th floor but was unable, so he went back to their suite only to find his wife beside herself and outright spooked. She said when the doors shut behind her, she heard a maniacal laugh and the smell of cigar smoke. On top of Fatty's ghost, other entities are routinely seen walking through the walls, slamming doors, or watching you sleep. So it's a no for me. Coming in at number 8 is Hawthorne Hotel. While this entire Salem hotel is said to be haunted by several different entities, the rooms you really need to be afraid of are 612 and 325. Room 612 and the 6th floor in general is where the apparition of a woman is often seen roaming the halls, who many believe is the ghost of Bridget Bishop, the first woman executed during the witch trials. Accused of bewitching 5 other women, she died in 1692 and remains haunting the property, seeking revenge for her life taken too soon. Those that stay in this room report a strong smell of apples, which most think has to do with the fact that she owned an apple orchard on the land where the hotel was built in 1925. But of course, it is her frightening apparition that stares at you while you sleep that is really unsettling. As for room 325, it's believed the entities that haunt this room may have been past guests. No one is quite sure why they are there, but these entities are definitely frightening. Guests report lights turning on and off with no explanation, as well as water faucets doing the same within the room. While lying on the bed, guests have reported experiencing an extreme level of cold, with many reporting being grabbed or tugged at while trying to fall asleep. Plus, at night, it's said the screams and cries of the past guests can be heard echoing in the room. But what's strange is it never seems to occur anywhere else in the building. Coming in at number 7, Fort Garry Hotel. Built in 1903, since its doors opened to the public, many famous figures have stayed overnight, including Queen Elizabeth II, King George VI, Louis Armstrong, even Liberace. But don't let the star-studded guest list ease your suspicions. This place is straight up frightening, especially room 202, where it said a woman took her own life by hanging in the closet. Those that have dared to stay in the haunted room claim they saw blood drip down the walls and that a terrifying woman wearing a cloak would appear out of nowhere, often hovering over the foot of the bed while you sleep at night. What's even scarier is that some say she will crawl into the bed with you and that you can feel her cold, ghostly frame wrap around you. But it's not just the room where you might run into the spooky ghoul. She's known to haunt the hotel lounge as well, where staff and guests alike claim to hear loud cries coming from the same corner. I mean, unless you're looking to literally cuddle up with a ghost, I would steer clear of this one. Coming in at number 6, the Fairmont Hotel. While many of us know Banff for the gorgeous, picturesque Rocky Mountains, the famous Fairmont Hotel also has a dark secret. Room 873. As the story goes, years and years ago, an entire family was killed in this very room. After a long investigation, the room was refurbished and went back into the usual cycle. But soon the hotel staff were receiving many disturbances about the room that sent their blood running cold. Guests said they would fall asleep only to be awoken by screams, and that when the lights turned off, bloody handprints would be found on the mirrors. Staff would rush to the room to investigate, but all seemed to have disappeared by the time they got there. Afraid of what lurked inside, the room was sealed shut and never to be entered again. And if you go there now, no trace of the room exists. There is only a long hallway where a door used to be, and if you knock along the wall, you'll hear a hollow noise where it's believed the room was once sealed up many years ago. But just because they've locked up this door doesn't mean the terrifying ghosts were trapped inside. It seems room 692 has taken over as the most haunted room in the joint, and the same kinds of frightening phenomena continue. And if that weren't enough, it's also reported the ghost of a bride is seen dancing in the ballroom. It said she tragically lost her life on her wedding day after tripping down the stairs, breaking her neck, and being set ablaze by nearby candles. Some guests claim to have witnessed her on fire walking through the halls, and who knows, she might just come and haunt you in room 692. Coming in at number 5, the Empress Hotel. Located in Victoria, British Columbia, the Empress Hotel is a decadent building known to be visited by some of the most elite of our society. But don't be fooled by its gorgeous exterior and extravagant decor. It just might be one of the most haunted hotels in all of Canada. There are many ghost stories told about this hotel, like the construction worker who was working during the 1960s and came across a shadowy figure hanging from the chandelier, only to discover a staff member had taken their life in that very room exactly 1 year prior. Guests also report an elderly woman in pajamas who'll knock at your door in the middle of the night asking for help finding her room, only to take you to the elevator and disappear right before your eyes. It's believed she was a ghost who haunted a room that has since been demolished due to the need for more elevators, hence her confusion and disappearance as soon as she steps foot into one. Others, like the building's architect and a young girl, haunt the building, but the most frightening spirit is the maid, Lizzie. Back in 1909, 1 year after the hotel's opening, Lizzie stepped out onto the hotel fire escape to say her rosary, as she did every night. But this time, unbeknownst to poor Lizzie, a contractor had disassembled the platform, and so Lizzie plummeted to her death from the 6th story. Guests who now stay anywhere on the 6th floor claim to have seen her walk through walls or hear her screams late at night, and believe she is out seeking revenge on the worker responsible for the end of her life. Coming in at number 4, Tubac Golf Resort and Spa. It's one thing to witness the sight of a ghost, but in my opinion, it's a whole other another terror to be physically grabbed or moved by one. According to one hotel worker back in 2010, they ended up having to work late, so instead of going home, he just decided to stay the night in the Otero ranch house. The ranch house had long been associated with ghostly apparitions and frightening tales, but the staff member was exhausted and it was the only room available, so he figured he would take his chances. When he got in, he decided to lay down on the couch and watch some TV for a bit before heading to bed, when suddenly he felt it move, and not just a little. According to the staff member, the entire couch lifted up off the floor, and with him in it, jerked several feet towards the TV. He was immediately freaked out, but before he could get up off the couch, the curtains that hung across the room from him lifted up and came down with a swoosh on top of him. Needless to say, he immediately bolted from the room and did not dare spend the rest of the night. Although he still works at the resort, he has never again stepped foot in the Otero Ranch and will choose sleeping in his car over ever staying a minute in the haunted room. Coming in at number 3, Hotel Provincial. Branded as one of the most haunted places in New Orleans, the Hotel Provincial is located in the infamously haunted French Quarter. Back in the day, there was a military hospital just down the street from the hotel, and one of the buildings used a medicinal herb garden for the hospital, which seems a little strange, but does make sense when you find out the kinds of spirits that haunt the halls. Today, the hotel consists of 5 buildings, and although ghosts are known to lurk in each, the most haunted building is believed to be number 5. Guests of building number 5 have reported seeing insane things, such as Confederate soldiers covered in blood, moaning from agonizing pain, who miraculously disappear once the lights turn on. Others have reported apparitions of surgeons in the halls, and maybe most disturbing is the amount of guests that have seen strange pools of blood appear on their bedding or the floor that disappear just as fast as they came into view. One guest even reported that as the elevator door opened on the hotel's 2nd floor, the hospital was entirely in view. So it seems as though the soldiers that died in the hospital down the street took a liking to the hotel and continued to haunt all the visitors who enter to this day. Coming in at number 2, Ottawa Jail Hostel. As you probably already figured out from the name, once upon a time this building was a jail. It opened its doors to the public in 1862 and quickly became the site of many public executions. On top of that, living conditions were harsh, with small, cold, and windowless cells that only had a small hole to allow for airflow. But things didn't start getting spooky until years later. After the building was converted into the hostel it is today, the parking lot was partially excavated to build a bridge, but to the construction workers' horror, the remains of 140 bodies were uncovered on the ground, and it's believed that all 140 bodies were prisoners who lost their life to execution. The most famous inmate was Patrick James Whelan, a man who up until his last breath pleaded he was not guilty of his convicted crime. What's worse is that he was told his body would be transported back to Montreal after his execution, but this promise was not kept, and they laid him to rest on the prison grounds. Angry and out for revenge, many guests say they have seen him or even been the victim of his wrath during their stay. One guest in particular, who made it very clear that she didn't even believe in ghosts prior to her stay, said at 1 o'clock in the morning she was woken by someone grabbing her arm and trying to pull her out of the bed. Her friend, who was across the room from her, woke when the girl screamed, "Let me go," into the darkness, and the two were both so frightened they couldn't fall back asleep. And last up, in our number 1 spot, La Pavilion Hotel. Just minutes away from the notorious French Quarter lies the luxurious Pavilion Hotel. But despite its lavish exterior, it is believed to be the home to over 100 spirits. And some paranormal investigators even believe the building sits on top of a portal to the other side. An interesting theory, considering the building's less than ideal history. Although today the area is a tourist hotspot, back in the 19th century, the ground where La Pavilion sits was deemed completely inhospitable and incredibly dangerous. It was the frequent spot for foul deeds and late night killings, which is likely why so many spirits reside in the hotel's 4 walls. Among the most talked about are a couple seen dressed in beautiful clothing roaming around with googly eyes. The couple will enter an elevator, but then it never goes anywhere. Instead, the usual ping sound rings loudly and the doors open up again, revealing no one inside. Many also claim to have witnessed a young woman on the 9th floor reported to have died on the steps of the hotel. But the truly terrifying entity only reveals herself at night. One guest staying on the most notoriously haunted 9th floor said that in the middle of the night, he was woken by a woman dressed in all black, sitting at the foot of his bed. He was speechless and terrified and went to scream, but the entity leaned in, ran her icy cold fingers through his hair and said, "You belong to me. I'll never let you go." Needless to say, he never returned, and I do not blame him. If I ever saw that lady in my room, I would be running as fast as I could.
In our number 10 spot, we have tarantulas. Yeah, I've never been a spider person myself, and those of you that are, well, honestly, I'd love to analyze your childhood. But in any case, yes, a tarantula was once discovered in a hotel room. Probably the most frightening thing ever. A couple was on a trip in Thailand and going to bed when they saw a shadow on the wall. Obviously being nervous as to what the heck it was, they immediately turned the lights on and bam, there it was, a giant tarantula on the wall. Holy crap, I'm pretty sure I would have been terrified to sleep again after that, even after it had been removed. In our number 9 spot, we have a firearm. A maid was cleaning the hotel room one day when she found a firearm, a revolver, under the bed. Whoa, that would very much terrify me. I would probably have had a moment of, looking around the room, feeling fearful that someone scary was hiding and going to jump out of the shower or something any minute, so yeah, that would have been terrifying. Anyways, unfortunately, the hotel was unable to locate the owner as the hotel only vacuums under the bed every 6 months. I wish I knew what hotel that was, because every 6 months doesn't seem very sanitary. You would think that the maids would still look under the bed just in case there isn't any inappropriate, adult items lying around. But maybe that's just me, I don't know. In our number 8 spot, we have a webcam. This one is another one that's probably out of one of my worst nightmares, and feels like it's also straight out of a horror movie. A man was just, unpacking his things in his hotel room when he discovered something flash in the vent. Of course, being curious, he decided to inspect it. What he found was a webcam. Who knows where that footage was being streamed to, but it is still so freaky. The camera was seemingly dying, as that's why it was flashing, but Lord knows how much it already streamed. Pretty nerve-wracking. In our number 7 spot, we have the toenail bag. Look, I understand if you fast forward this one, because when I read about it, I almost puked in my mouth. But then I had a sip of my delicious coffee beside me, and all was well in the world again. One day, when a manager was on duty, the cleaning staff reported to him that they had found a bag filled with a disturbing amount of toenail clippings. Oh, so gross. If there were more than 10, then you know that whoever had this bag was keeping maybe theirs and someone else's, but wait, actually it doesn't matter how many, because the fact that they're keeping them at all, let alone in a bag for whatever reason, is very disturbing. Is that like a weird fetish that I've never heard about? Yikes, that's so gross. I can't help but laugh, it's very disturbing. In our number 6 spot, we have baby ducks. Apparently, there once was a guest that possibly rescued a bunch of little ducklings after their mother died, or perhaps she was the reason their mother died. That part is unclear. Anyways, this guest kept the ducklings in a hotel bathtub and must have gotten bored and decided, all right, well, peace out ducklings, I'm over you, and then just left. Well, the hotel staff, of course, found the ducklings in the tub, and then they transported them to the hotel office, where someone came by and adopted them, thankfully. Even though the woman who put them in the tub is definitely questionable, I guess perhaps it might have been good, as they might have had a harder time without their mother, and who knows if they would have found their way. I don't know much about ducks and how long they need to be with their mom, but hopefully whoever took them took care of them well. In our number 5 spot, we have a bloody Bible. Well, this one is a bit intense, to say the least. In a Motel 6, of course, a Motel 6, in Riverside, California, a man found a Bible in his room, allegedly with blood smeared all over it. Of course, he concluded that this was either A, satanic ritual of some sort, B, someone who really dislikes the Bible, or C, someone who accidentally got a severe paper cut while reading the Bible. it happens. If I ever found a bloody Bible, I would instantly assume that I had been cursed, and would probably get on my knees and pray. Not that I'm very religious, but that scene would surely make anyone pray, right? Am I right, or am I right, or am I right? I would then proceed to call all of my loved ones in case I die, and then begin to also persuade someone to pay for me to move to a Hilton, where they leave little chocolates in your room, not bloody Bibles. This isn't an ad for Hilton. In our number 4 spot, we have a snake. One night, a maintenance technician was working what he thought to be yet another shift, but boy was he wrong. Around 10:30 in the evening, he gets a frantic call from the front desk lady telling him that he has to go check a room out now, as there is a snake in there. There's a snake in my boot. I couldn't help myself. He thought that something was miscommunicated or someone was playing a prank, but when he got to the room, he saw 3 guests terrified, and yep, there was indeed a snake in the room. A massive one too. It was wrapped around the pull-out sofa, and it was right at the part you would have had to go to pull it out. Yikes, that gives me the heebie-jeebies. I honestly am undecided as to what's worse to find in your room, a tarantula or a snake. Would love to know your thoughts in the comment section below. In our number 3 spot, we have a corpse. I'm sure you were waiting for this one. I wonder how many times this has happened in hotel history. I really feel for hotel staff, man. They have to deal with so much. Baby ducklings, tarantulas, snakes, corpses. Whew. Anyways, a corpse was found underneath one of the beds in a room. The body was wrapped in a bag, and the police suspected to be about a week dead when it was found. So that meant that a number of guests stayed in this room and slept on this bed with a corpse underneath it. That's it. I'm never staying in another hotel room without checking underneath the bed. These hotels really need to make their staff check under their beds more often. How scary. In our number 2 spot, we have the Rolex. A man went to his hotel room in Las Vegas only to open the door and discover a number of diamond necklaces, gold rings, and Rolex watches laid out on the bed. The value was anywhere from $30,000 to $100,000. Probably closer to $100,000. Anyways, he just thought he had the wrong room. So he went downstairs, confirmed his room, and sure enough, it was his room. He decided to tell the staff what he found, and the staff applauded him for his honesty and decided to give him a room upgrade. Honestly, that kind of money is life-changing. I truly wonder how many people would have turned it in to the staff. I bet you anything this man possibly regretted his decision afterwards. I would have definitely felt morally obliged to tell the truth, but it would have hurt my soul like at the same time. In our number 1 spot, we have a baby. Yup. A baby was found in a hotel room once in Mexico by a couple. They opened their door only to find the baby lying on their bed in a blanket. Not knowing what to do, and also not knowing Spanish very well, they tried to speak to the front desk lady over the phone, but she wasn't understanding them. So they brought the baby down to the front desk only to be approached by a crying lady and 2 cops, and one of them handcuffed the couple. After a translator was found to smooth over the situation, the couple was told that the baby belonged to one of the cleaning staff who was new to the hotel, and she couldn't remember the room she left her baby in, and since she was new, she was too scared to tell her boss that she brought her baby into work, let alone forgot the room. So she ended up telling her friend, and her friend called the cops. Wow, what a wild situation to get caught up in. I bet that's a story they will never forget.
At number 10, we have a bunch of heads. After this kind of experience, I wouldn't be surprised if you quit your job cleaning hotel rooms and move to another country and start your passion project of selling watercolor paintings. Sounds much nicer than what we have going on here. This story was written on Reddit by Reddit user The Lock. He said that he ran into a maid in a hotel that was distraught. She was running down the halls screaming and crying. Now maybe she just walked in on a couple having sex and it scared her little eyeballs. But it turns out that it was much worse than 2 people just bumping uglies. movies. It was a bathtub that was fully loaded with human heads. But you can guess what happened next. They called the police and the dude who was staying in the room was arrested. But get this, the guy never ended up going to jail. How can you have 10 heads in a bathtub and just walk away without even a slap on the wrist? Apparently this guy worked for a cadaver lab. He was transporting the heads and left them in the tub to thaw. So next time you take a bath in a hotel, remember that bath might have been used to thaw out some human heads. That's disgusting. At number 9 we have peekaboo. The relationships we have with hotel workers and ourselves are built on trust. We just trust each other to not do anything weird. And it's moments like these that make it hard to trust the hotel staff. A couple in Mexico was staying at a resort and they noticed something strange in their hotel room. There was a large hole in the bathroom, a hole about the size of a quarter, maybe a little bit bigger than that. They called the front desk who went to investigate. It shouldn't have been anything weird, right? Well, that's when they found out that the hole led to a maintenance room where a camera had been set up who was filming everyone who went to the bathroom there. Someone had been spying on people in their bathroom and recording it for who knows how long. They quickly switched rooms and then who knows what happened from there. I have no idea if the peeping Tom was ever caught. At number 8 we have guns. Jim Angleton probably wanted a very secure place to spend the night, but I don't think he thought that would ever mean getting a firearm fully loaded and left in his room. I think if you want to have a gun in your room, you're just gonna bring your own gun. You don't need someone else's gun floating around. You don't know if it works well or if it was recently used in a crime. Well, it didn't matter if that's what he wanted because that's what he got. He was staying at a hotel and everything seemed nice and prepped for him, but when he laid down on the bed, it seemed like something hard was under the pillow, and then he lifted up the pillow and surprise, there was a fully loaded handgun with the safety off just chilling underneath the pillow. Thank God it didn't go off. If it shot him but it didn't kill him, he would have this strange fear of pillows for the rest of his life. And then if it did kill him, his friends and family would have to hear the story of how he got killed by a pillow. Not exactly the most manly way to die. Well, he told the front desk who quickly came to take care of the problem, and because of this crazy mishap, he got upgraded to a nice room. Not too shabby. If I knew that's how this worked, I would just start planting guns in every place I stayed. Which actually might end up being more expensive. I don't know. Yeah, maybe I wouldn't. I don't know what the math on that is. At number 7 we have how many feet do you have? It's normal to leave a little bit of a mess behind when you stay at a hotel, but you don't want to be a complete slob because you know someone has to come and clean it up after because we're still trying to be a civil human being. You don't want to treat your cleaning staff like that. That's just rude. But this story is just crazy. Redditor Pool with No Ladder used to work at the front desk of a hotel and he would get to hear all the crazy stories the cleaners would come back with. One day he said that there was a room that was covered in toenails. 2 people have been staying there for a weekend, so even if they cut all their fingernails and their toenails, there should be only 40 nails maximum. But the cleaners said that there were hundreds of them scattered everywhere, like to the point where if you tiptoed through the room, you would get stabbed with a little nail in your toe. It's so gross. How does that even end up happening? They went in there with like a bag of toenails and just started throwing it all over the room? This is disgusting. At number 6 we have I feel 10 pounds lighter. Now some people have conditions that cause their bodies to act in weird ways, like having really bad dry skin. Now there's nothing wrong with that, but I don't think you would want to be the person who was in charge of cleaning the tub after they gave themselves a little bit of a scrub down and all their loose skin was floating around. A cleaning person at the Hilton Hotel came to find a tub that had something strange going on. All over the dead sides was a ton of dead skin, like enough to fill a Ziploc bag. An elderly man had just been staying there and I guess he decided this was the best time to give himself a deep clean. The girl who was supposed to clean the room gagged and ran out, and I didn't get details as to whether or not she came back to finish the job. I know, I wouldn't have. At number 5 we have that's not what that's for. Redditor user Arlie77 had a very strange thing happen to her when she was staying at a Hilton. I don't know if you can even blame the cleaning staff for this one because who thinks about cleaning the ice tray? But Arlie77 went to make some ice with the ice tray, and when she found the ice tray, it was already full, but there wasn't water in it, there was human poop. Someone was trying to make poopsicles out of their own dung. For what purpose, I will never know. Maybe you need to keep your toilet water cold. This would make me never trust anything in a hotel room again. Oh my god, it's disgusting. At number 4 we have, we're in the middle of something. Please, whatever you do, knock before you come into any room. Frankly, even your own room. You never know if there's going to be something creepy going on in there. This Reddit user deleted their account so I couldn't get their name, but they did say that they used to work as a bellboy and they would have to deliver room service from time to time to different rooms. One night a room ordered 4 bottles of champagne. They must have been celebrating something. Well, it looks like they were celebrating a wrap party because the people in there were in the middle of shooting a when he opened the door. They're probably like, hey kid, put the champagne down on the table. And have you ever thought about being on camera? At number 3 we have party room. You walk into your hotel room and the first thing you think is, oh my god, what happened in here? This is horrible. And then the second thing you think is, oh, someone had a really good time. Redditor Goddess, and that's Goddess spelled 2 big G's, a little O, 2 big D's, a little E, and then 2 big S's, left a story behind on why she quit her job in the hospitality industry. She was working as a hotel cleaner and walked into a room that looked like it was the most insane party of all time. Let's go down the list of things that were all over the room. Condoms filled with everywhere, stains all over every part of the room, mystery stains, as well as blood smears on the wall like identifiable stains, pipes, and needles all over the place. And to top it off, there was a bunch of puke. Puke on the walls, puke around the toilet, puke on the floor. And the biggest mystery was how puke got on the ceiling. How does that even happen? Did someone perform an exorcism in this room? Well, she got the front desk to call the police, and the crazy thing is, after the cops left, the people she worked for still wanted her to clean the room, and so she did the smart thing and quit her job. No one should force you. Needles, you don't clean that up. At number 2 we have signs of escape. People using sleazy hotels as a way to traffic humans isn't just a thing people throw into low budget movies as a trope, it's actually something that happens in real life. There was a flight attendant who was forced to stay at a crummy hotel because a flight she was supposed to work on got delayed due to snow. This wasn't super uncommon, but she noticed something strange about the room. There was markings all over the door next to the lock. She realized someone had drilled a lock into the door so it could be sealed from the outside. There was also scratches all over the radiator like something metal had been rubbing against it, like someone had been chained to it. She called the front desk, who then called the police, but it turns out the person who was staying there gave fake information and they couldn't be tracked down. That is very terrifying. And for the number 1 spot we have, I left a present for you. The Redditor Broadway Rocks has taken the cake on this one. She used to work in a hotel where a family had been staying for a month. Their house had burned down, so they had nowhere to go, and you want to feel bad for them, but they were absolutely awful to the staff, yelling at them, and the father would constantly hit on all the female employees, like super gross. One day they left to go visit friends, and the hotel staff saw this as an opportunity to clean their suite because they were never allowed to go inside there. When they walked in, there was a horrible smell, and after further inspection they found that someone had taken a poop in the microwave and was running it, like they were heating the poo to get the poo smell everywhere. Someone was trying to cook a poop in that place. Then they opened the fridge and they found more turds. There was turds in the drawers of the fridge. On top of that, they had jars of leeches for some unknown reason. These people were removed from the hotel and then charged an immense fee for the amount of damage they did and pooping in the microwave. Kicking off the countdown at the number 10, we have the room at the Hollywood Roosevelt Hotel. The glamorous hotel opened in 1927 right at the center of Hollywood and has a long history of celebrities staying there. It is often used for movie premiere after parties and even hosted the very first Oscars. It's a huge spot for tourists, but one room in particular is known to be haunted. Room 1200. People have reported seeing the legendary star Marilyn Monroe walk through the halls of that room. Well, the hall's the room, you know, the whole living situation. She was staying there during her rise to fame. It's been said that she shot her first ever ad at the Roosevelt pool, and she still hangs around the pool to this day. Many guests said they have seen her in the room's mirror, and maintenance workers said they've seen her blue dress moving through the halls. If you're gonna be haunted by a ghost, it might as well be Marilyn Monroe, am I right? Up next at number 9 is the Red Lion Inn, located in Stockbridge, Massachusetts. The inn has been around since 1773, and throughout the years it has been a favorite spot for paranormal investigators and mediums. The hotel is filled with a haunting past, and reports say that the 4th floor has a lot of sightings. The ghost of a young girl carrying flowers and a man with a top hat are the 2 most frequent sightings, but one room in particular has the most activity. It's on the 3rd floor and it's room 301. A guest reported that they woke up feeling like someone was standing over their bed and heard unexplained knocks and voices throughout their stay. Sniping the number 8 spot on our countdown is the Queen Anne in San Francisco. The Now Hotel was once a school for girls back in 1890, run by the headmistress named Miss Mary Lake. Over the years, the school converted to a hotel, and it's been said that Miss Mary Lake will look after the guests who stay in her former office, room 410. She's not a ghost that will terrorize people like in horror movies. She looks after her guests, like she once did with her students many generations ago. Guests have reported that their clothes were unpacked when they came back to the rooms, and they woke up in the middle of the night to find out that their blankets had been neatly tucked underneath them. I can't tell if this is creepy or comforting. I kind of like the idea of a ghost nanny who just like takes care of you. Like, creepy nanny, please tuck me in. I don't know why I was Italian for that. Cruising into the number 7 spot is the Omni Groove Park in Asheville, North Carolina. Back in the 1920s, news broke that a woman either jumped or got pushed to her death from the 5th floor balcony. A century later, employees and guests say that the room she was in, room 545, is still haunted by her presence. Her case was never solved, which might be part of the reason why she still makes herself known. They refer to her as the Lady in Pink because she is often seen in a pink dress or leaves behind a pink mist. Apparently, young children are the ones who spot her the most, so if you really want to catch a glimpse of her, grab your kids and make them do the work. Be like, hey Johnny, find this ghost for me. Yeah, ghost finding kid. Put them on a leash like they're a ghost town and they just like crawl around like is that the noise that kids make? I don't know what noise kids make. In at the number 6 is the Malaga Inn, located in Mobile, Alabama. It's considered one of the most haunted hotels in Alabama and still has the boutique style that it did when it was built in 1862. The property is historic in the Deep South and is still a memory of the Civil War era. It has 39 rooms, Victorian furnishings and decor, and a beautiful outdoor courtyard. When it was built, the 2 townhouses were constructed by 2 in-laws as wedding gifts for their 2 sisters in the family. Guests claim that the sisters never left the home and that they often spot a ghostly lady figure in a white dress in room 007. She was recently spotted pacing on the balcony. Other guest reports say that their lights turn on and off by themselves, furniture moves on its own, and even a swinging chandelier. The only time a swinging chandelier is cool is when you're swinging from it with a bottle of champagne in one hand, you're like popping it and blowing it at everyone, you're like, I'm rich, you can do whatever I want. That's when it's cool. We're halfway through at number 5 and we have La Posada, which is located in Santa Fe. It's known for being a hotel now, but before it was renovated, it was actually the home of a German lady named Julia Stab. The mansion was built for her by her husband in 1882, and after her 8th child died shortly after birth, she fell into a deep depression. Reports say she hid in her room, was never seen in the flesh again after 1896, her death becoming a huge mystery. So now that it's a hotel, guests have said they've seen her staying in room 100, which was her former bedroom. It can be a haunting experience if you decide to stay there. It's been said that Julia used to love baths, and guests staying in room 100 would hear running water in the middle of the night and their water would turn on and off on its own. Alright guys, we're at number 4 with the Concords Colonial Inn. If you walk down the hallways of this hotel, you might feel a chill running up your spine because it's known for being historically haunted by its past. It was built in Concord, Massachusetts back in the Revolutionary War. One of the rooms in the hotel is known for being haunted, room 24, because it was used as an operation room for wounded soldiers back in the 1770s. Caretakers operated on the wounded soldiers and many of them didn't survive and passed away in that very room. Many guests have dared to spend the night there and they say they see floating orbs, hear haunting voices, and even saw the ghost of a nurse walking around the room. Would you guys like to stay in this room? For me, that's a no. In our 3rd spot is the Battery Carriage Inn. The hotel in Charleston, South Carolina is known for being the most romantic bed and breakfast, but also the most haunted. How do those two blend together? I'm not exactly sure. The hotel is said to have been haunted for many years and the website openly brags about it. Apparently there are 3 rooms in the hotel that are haunted. Room 3, room 8, and room 10. Room 10 is known for a headless torso, room 3 has a variety of different ghost sightings, and room 8 always has a man apparition. The hotel was built in the 1840s and still lives on as one of the most popular tourist spots to this day. Taking over the number 2 spot is the Crescent Hotel and Spa. The Arkansas Hotel has been given the title for being America's most haunted hotel, with claims that it has a portal to the other side, if you know what I mean. It opens up a door to the dead. Over the years, many guests have reported ghost sightings and paranormal activity, a fact that is known by the 2 owners who bought it back in 1997. They ended up hiring certified mediums to do a reading on the building, and they found out that the hotel was a portal to the other side, a dimension that holds the spirits of the dead. But why this hotel? Because it was once a hospital back in 1937, when a doctor named Norman Baker treated cancer patients despite his lack of training. As a result, many of the people died, and apparently you can stay in the room that was once a morgue if you want to have the worst night of your life. Winning the #1 spot on our list is the Stanley Hotel. It is #1 because it is the most spirit hotel in America, and it was the inspiration for the Stephen King movie The Shining after the famous author stayed there for one night. It was built back in 1909, but to this day guests report that they see spirits and hear untraceable piano music. And they also hear manic laughs in empty spaces, and it's been said that the spirits are all employees and guests who were once at the hotel from many years ago. Room 217 is known for being the most haunted, and it's the one that Stephen King and his wife stayed in back in 1974, which inspired the novel which made the iconic movie many years later.